Hello, welcome to the Content Farm, where I farm my life for content. Unfortunately, my life doesn't have that much content, but I'm doing it anyway. I'm the library. I'm a semi-speaking autistic, and I'm also non-binary, and I have DID and high cholesterol. So I'm just trying to reduce my cholesterol a little bit, because my cholesterol shot up when I started taking testosterone for transitioning, and I found out that all of my other medications also cause high cholesterol, and also it is a genetic thing for me. So it's just a whole lot of stuff. So that's what I'm doing. So for these next videos, I'm going to be adjusting my diet. This week I researched my options for improving cholesterol with diet, and I also tracked the kind of a baseline for nutrition for what I eat already. Things that affect cholesterol, I don't track every single little thing, so I can see how I need to adjust. So let's talk about what I found out this week, and while I do that, since me just talking at a camera is kind of boring, I also filmed a little what I eat in a day for my baseline, what I eat in a day before any changes. So let's do that. So what I found out, I was reading about cholesterol on Medline Plus, which is an excellent resource, highly recommend. And what I found there was a few things that affect cholesterol, and their recommendations for how much of your diet it should be. Basically, you're looking at your total fat, your saturated fat, your trans fats, your dietary cholesterol, your fiber intake, and your sodium intake. And there's something missing from that list. I know that refined sugar intake also affects cholesterol. And that's not including things like your sugar that you get from whole fruits and vegetables and stuff like that. We're talking your refined added sugars. So I looked that up, and I found that on Healthline, the recommendations for refined sugar. These recommendations are for total fat, you should be getting between 28 and 39 grams per 1,000 calories that you eat. For saturated fat, it should be under 7 grams per 1,000 calories, and you shouldn't be having trans fats at all. For dietary cholesterol, it should be under 200 milligrams per day, and fiber should be between 25 and 30 grams. Sodium should be under 2,300 milligrams. And for sugar, again, sugar is based on how many calories you're eating. You shouldn't be getting more than 25 grams of sugar per 1,000 calories that you're eating per day. So for this week, I tracked all of these things for what I was eating every day and averaged out all of the results. And so I thought that it was going to be really, really bad because my cholesterol is so high and my blood pressure is really high and I'm overweight and all that stuff. But the results weren't that bad. I mean, I've made a few changes already, but not sweeping drastic changes. So this isn't much different from what I was already eating before I started doing stuff. So for calories, I'm averaging out at 1,900 calories per day. I'm having 39 grams of total fat per 1,000 calories and 10 grams of saturated fat per 1,000 calories. Now the total fat is just on the line of the upper limit of what it should be, but the saturated fat is only 3 grams over. For trans fats, I actually don't eat that many already. It turns out that even here in the United States, which doesn't phase out things that other countries are banning, it's being phased out of most products. So I've only had 3 grams, and that was actually not an average per day. That was the total amount of trans fat that I ate. So I think I'm good on that. For cholesterol, my average was 127 milligrams per day, which is below the 200, so I'm fine on cholesterol. My fiber is only 20 grams per day, which is 5 grams below the minimum. For sodium, I've been having 2,117 milligrams per day, which is under the maximum, which I found really interesting because I thought that I ate a lot of sodium. like throughout my whole life, I've had like borderline high blood pressure to high blood pressure. And so I've always been told like, oh, reduce your sodium intake, reduce your sodium intake, reduce. And so I have been my whole life, but I've also been like struggling with like dizziness and fainting and chronic dehydration, even though I'm getting enough water that I shouldn't be dehydrated. And that's just been a thing. And last year I was talking to my doctor. I was addressing some GI issues I was having, and my doctor told me like, this sounds like an electrolyte imbalance, and actually you should be drinking more sodium and consuming more sodium. And so she actually instructed me to add salt to my water bottle whenever I got my water bottle refilled. So I started increasing my sodium by like a lot. I increased it by a lot, but I wasn't tracking. Now I don't like get dizzy for no apparent reason very often, like every once in a while, but it's really not that often. I don't faint for no apparent reason. Usually if I faint it's because like of an injection or something, or I just pulled a muscle, and when I like pull a muscle or something, experience like any sharp pain, I just pass out. But like not for like no apparent reason. I'm not just out and about and suddenly I faint, which is what I used to do. And I haven't felt dehydrated even in the summer last year. So I thought my sodium was really high because I'd increased it so much, but like it's still under the recommended limit. So my sodium's fine. I'm doing a lot better on that. And the last thing is refined sugar. Now, this one I'm at 31 grams per 1,000 calories, so it's not too bad. But it does need to go lower. It needs to go below 25 grams. So this isn't too bad. Most of the things that I tracked are within like the acceptable range of like what I should be targeting. I just need to target saturated fat, fiber, and sugar intake. I was considering like doing possibly a diet for improving cholesterol, but I actually don't really do very well on specific diets like that. I get really fixated on the rules and like I like feel myself spiraling into like disordered eating thoughts and habits. But there's also a danger of that for tracking numbers like I did this week. Like if I'm going to be doing something, I need to like track something. So what I really wanted to do was target one thing at a time and only track that thing and ignore everything else and not track. But like already I can feel myself like I started this week switching just to fiber because I want to target fiber this week. And like I was like erasing my other things that I was tracking on my tracking form, and it was like I felt anxious about like not tracking the rest of it. But that just means that I should stop tracking the rest of it and just focus on like I said, one thing at a time, not tracking everything obsessively, stuff like that. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be focusing on fiber this week, just because adding something in is a lot easier than taking it away. So I'm going to be adding in some fiber. So that's that. I feel pretty hopeful about this. So for the check-in, I decided to get rid of the waist to hip ratio number just because it was making me feel dysphoric. So I've only got 4 check-in numbers. So if you're sensitive to numbers, then for like body related stuff, then go ahead and click out, and I will see you next week. For this week, my weight was 212.3 pounds, or 96 kilograms. So that's actually a 2-pound weight loss. My waist is the same at 43 inches, or 109 centimeters. My resting heart rate was 77 beats per minute, which is in the normal range. And my blood pressure is improved slightly. Instead of being high, it's only elevated at 120/77. So, I mean, that's good. That's probably from getting like exercise every day or something. I don't know. So that's pretty cool. So hopefully you enjoyed this little what I eat in a day video. If you want to kind of follow around with my little adventure, then like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. Go do that. Okay, bye.